Welcome to TL Yarn Crafts TV. I'm Tony, your host, and today we'll be learning how to add a ribbed brim to your top-down beanies. I'm really glad to be doing a tutorial about how to add a nice knit look ribbing to your top-down beanies because I am a top-down beanie fanatic. I think there's definitely a place for bottom-up beanies, but when it comes to making something that's a really great fit, also something that works up pretty quickly, that's easy to shape, I think top-down is really where it's at. The only issue I was coming across is how to finish the hats because like most people, I was doing a faux ribbing, doing front post stitches for crochet, and yeah, those are nice, but they're a little bit bulky and I feel like they just feel clunky to me. Also, I would do like single crochet in the back loop, which is also fine. I think there's a place for all of it, but to get that nice modern look on your beanies, I think a nice ribbing here at the bottom, the way that I'm going to work it, is really where it's at. So I've got here a couple examples of how I've used this technique. This is my Mega Pom beanie. It's the very first pattern I ever created, and I added this technique. Just goes to show how much I love it and how long I've loved it for. And then my newest pattern is the Bubble Wrap Slouch XL. This is made from a bulky weight yarn, and again, I use that same ribbing technique here on the bottom. So I'm going to grab my materials and show you exactly how I make this ribbing. Let's go ahead and get started. For this tutorial, I've actually already started a mini version of my Mega Pom beanie. I think this ends up fitting like a 6-month-old. It's so cute and tiny. So since this is a top-down hat, I am at my very last stitch. So I'm going to grab my hook, insert it here. I'm going to do the last stitch of my hat. And at this point, I would usually do my slip stitch and move straight into my brim. For the sake of this tutorial, I'm actually going to drop my old color and I'm going to add this nice warm brown so you can see exactly what I'm doing. So I'm going to slip stitch here, and then you're going to start some chains. Now the chains are going to dictate how long your brim is. If you like a really long brim, you can go super long. If you want one short, you can totally do that. I am just going to chain 7. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Now, one little trick of the trade that I like to do when I'm doing my brim this way is I actually drop an entire millimeter hook size. So I went from a 5mm to a 4mm for this project. The reason I like to do that is because it creates a nice snug brim so the hat doesn't fall off, especially on fine little baby hairs. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to single crochet down this chain all the way to the base of my hat. So I'm going to skip, of course, that first chain, and I'm going to single crochet in each chain down this chain. So that's the first, second, that's 3, 4, 5, and 6. So at this point, we're at the place where we need to anchor the brim to our hat, which we'll do at the end of every other row. So what we'll do actually is we're going to find the next 2 stitches on the base of our hat, and we're going to slip stitch into those stitches. So these are the next 2. We're going to insert our hook and slip stitch. So you'll insert your hook, pull up a loop, pull through the loop that's on your hook. So I just created 2 slip stitches here. And what we're going to do, this is kind of the magic part, is we're going to rotate our piece to start working back up the single crochets that we made. What we'll do actually is we'll skip the 2 slip stitches here, pretend like they're not even there, working in the back loop only. We're going to single crochet up our single crochet brim. And that back loop is what's going to create the ridges that's going to make it look like ribbing. So that's 6 single crochets in the back loop. And we're back at the top of our brim. We're going to chain 1, we're going to rotate, and we're going to work back down in the back loops only of our single crochet brim. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And again, we're going to slip stitch in the next 2 stitches at the base of our hat. So we're going to insert, pull up a loop, and pull through the loop on our hook, insert, slip stitch. Again, we're going to rotate, skip those 2 slip stitches, and work in the back loop only of the single crochets of our brim. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. At the end, we're going to chain 1, turn, and do it all over again. Working in the back loops only, we're going to work down our brim. 4, 5, and 6. Slip stitch in the next 2 stitches at the base of our hat. 1 and 2. Rotate, skip those slip stitches, work back up the brim. I bet you're like, oh my gosh, that was so easy. Why did I think this was difficult? No, it's not. It's super easy. It creates a gorgeous brim that looks a lot like knit, in my opinion. And it just finishes off your hats beautifully. I think sometimes crochet gets a bad rap because it doesn't often look as finished as knitting does. But I think a technique like this is really what elevates your crochet. And especially if you're a designer as well, it gives your customers an opportunity to do something a little bit different than they maybe will see with traditional patterns. I typically used to do like the front post double crochets to create that faux ribbed look, or sometimes even if I was being super lazy with my top down hats, I would like single crochet in the back loop around, but it created brims that would like stretch out, or they wouldn't lay flat, or just didn't look good. I think some of those looks are what people kind of get down on crochet about, but something like this creates a really clean, nice brim that you can really be proud of and make a hat that's got that real modern look to it. So again, we're going to skip those 2 slip stitches and work up our brim. 4, 5, and 6, and chain 1. So let's take a look at our work. So basically this is what we started with, right? So we started with our chains, we worked back loop down to the base of our hat, and we slip stitched in 2 stitches and then worked back up our brim. So you can see that that brim is stuck to that hat. That is anchored. That is going nowhere, of course, but you've got kind of like a ribbing that was worked perpendicular to the hat. So you get this nice ribbed effect. So you'll continue that around your entire hat. I'm gonna go warm up my now cold coffee, drink that, finish this brim up, and I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna show you how to close up your hat once you make it all the way around your brim. So I've now completed my ribbed brim around my entire hat. I'm at the back now. I've got 2 more stitches at the base of my hat, so I've got just a couple rows to complete. So I'm working in the back loop of my brim all the way down to the base. Little mistake there. 4, 5, and 6. Working in the last 2 stitches on the base of my hat, turning, skipping those 2 slip stitches, and working back up the brim in the back loop only of my hat. 5, 4, 5, and 6. And depending on how many stitches you had of your hat, you might end up at the top of your brim or at the bottom. It really doesn't matter. What I like to do to close up, and you can do a few different things. You can always cut the yarn, whip stitch the ends together. What I like to do for a nice clean look is I actually turn my hat inside out. I'm gonna insert my hook back into my loop, and I'm going to slip stitch these 2 layers of the fabric together. It just makes for a nice clean edge, I think. And why not finish with crochets? Of course, more excuses to crochet, right? So I'm going to insert through both layers of my fabric, I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to slip stitch. Insert through both layers, yarn over, and slip stitch for each stitch down. So we'll have 6 total slip stitches. 4, 5, 5 and 6. All right, pull up a loop a little bit. We're gonna cut the yarn, pull that loop up and out, and of course at this point you would weave in all of your ends, which I'm not going to do right now because that's my least favorite part. But what I am going to show you is the finished hat. Look at that brim, folks. How stinking cute is this? So you've got a nice faux ribbed brim, and in my opinion it's not even faux ribbed, it's actually ribbed because you ribbed it. You did a good job. And you can barely tell the front from the back. Like you can barely even see the seam on this, right? So this is for like a tiny little baby, and I'm gonna put like a pom-pom at the top and find someone with a baby to give this to. But again, thank you so much for watching this tutorial. You can check out my shops. I have actually several top-down beanies that you can use this technique for, as well as a couple garment patterns. So thanks again for checking this out, and I'll see you next time. Thanks again for joining me on this tutorial on how to add a ribbed brim to your top-down crochet hats. I absolutely love this technique because it creates a nice finished edge to your hats, and also it looks a lot like knitting, right? So if you're ready to put this technique to the test, I have several lovely patterns that you should try, including the Bubble Wrap Slouch XL and the classic Mega Pom Beanie. If you need something a little bit more challenging, try out my Veronica Cardi. I mean, this lovely, squishy, fabulous sweater uses the ribbed brim technique for the collar, the cuffs, and the pockets. So you can find links to all of these patterns as well as my shops in the video notes below. Thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you next time.